Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 42 male, was married to Amanda, now 39 female, for almost 10 years. We met when I was 22 and she was 19. She was studying early education. I was finishing up my degree in finance. We met through mutual friends, clicked almost immediately, and stayed together through graduation, job hunting, apartment hopping, and all the chaotic growing pains of early adulthood. We got married when I was 30. It felt like the right time. Stable jobs, decent savings, and the kind of companionship that felt like it could last. Amanda was beautiful, warm, driven, organized. I thought I hit the jackpot. But there was one thing that hovered over our relationship from the start. I can't have children. I was diagnosed with non-obstructive azoospermia at 26. It was devastating. I grieved it. I even told Amanda early on, expecting her to walk away, but she didn't. She held my hand, kissed my cheek, and said, "We'll figure it out. I want you, not just a baby." For years, we discussed adoption, sperm donors, and even the idea of not having kids at all. I thought we were on the same page. Spoiler alert, we weren't. 3 years before our divorce, Amanda started becoming distant. She stopped initiating intimacy. She worked longer hours. She picked more fights. At first, I chalked it up as marriage crisis. Her job at the preschool was demanding, and we'd been talking about selling our condo and buying a house. I suggested couples therapy. She said no, that everything was fine, and then she sat me down and told me she was pregnant. I was speechless. I literally felt the air leave my lungs. For a moment, I even hoped. Maybe it was a miracle and the baby is min. Maybe something changed, but no. Her eyes were full of guilt. Her voice was shaking, and then she said it. "It's not yours." "I'm so sorry." The room spun. She confessed that she'd been having an affair for over a year with my older brother, Caleb, 45 male. To say I was blindsided doesn't even begin to cover it. I couldn't speak. I got up, walked out, and checked into a hotel for a week. I didn't answer her texts or my brother's increasingly panicked calls. I didn't tell our parents or my sister. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how my entire life had crumbled in a single sentence. After the fog cleared, I filed for divorce. No long discussions, no therapy, no second chances. Just done. I went full no contact. I blocked Amanda on everything. I blocked Caleb too. I asked our family not to talk to me about them again. You might be wondering why Caleb of all people? Let me give you some context. Caleb is 3 years older than me. He was our mother's firstborn, and she treated him like the second coming of Christ. He was bright, adventurous, a free spirit. In reality, he was lazy, entitled, and completely incapable of accepting consequences. In school, he was constantly in trouble, fighting, skipping class. My mother always made excuses. Boys will be boys. He's misunderstood. Teachers just don't know how to reach him. Meanwhile, I was the good son, straight A student, reliable, but far away from golden child. My mother never missed a chance to compare us. "Why can't you be more confident like your brother?" "Caleb's just trying to find his passion." "Why are you so rigid?" Caleb bounced between community college programs, quit 4 jobs in a single year, started a landscaping business with no knowledge of landscaping, and once got a $20,000 loan from our mom to invest in cryptocurrency in 2012, and promptly lost it all. He never paid her back, and yet he was always forgiven, always praised, always defended. I, on the other hand, got silence for achievements, pressure to do more, and constant guilt-tripping if I said no to any request. After the divorce, I poured myself into my work. I built my financial consulting business into something big. I now own a home, travel regularly, and have no debt. I also have no children, which still hurts sometimes, but I've made peace with it. Now here's where it gets relevant again. My younger sister Jenna, 38 female, is the opposite of Caleb. Responsible, kind, grounded. She married her college sweetheart, had 2 kids, and was living a happy life until her husband passed away from cancer 3 years ago. It was heartbreaking. Jenna never asked for help, but I gave it. I started covering her kids' private school tuition. I set up college funds. I take them on trips. They call me Uncle D. They're good kids, grateful, respectful, and curious. Helping them makes me feel whole in a way I didn't expect. They will inherit whatever I have when I'm gone. I've already made it official. Which brings me to last month. My mother showed up at my house unannounced. That's rare. We're not close, and she doesn't like that I live so far. It's 40 minutes away. She sat on my couch, adjusted her purse strap like she was preparing for court, and said we needed to talk about Caleb. I said, we really don't. She insisted. She said things are bad for him and Amanda. He's working part-time at a hardware store. Amanda is doing her best, but stretched thin. Their car broke down. The kids, yes, they have 4 now, are growing fast. Their rent went up. They're drowning. I asked, and what does this have to do with me? She looked stunned, like I just said I burned down a church. She said, you're helping Jenna's kids. It's only fair you help Caleb's too. They're your nieces and nephews as well. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. I said, you want me to financially support my wife's affair child and other children they had. She said, don't talk like that. That's in the past. The children are innocent. I said, so was I. She got defensive, said Caleb made a mistake, that he's trying, and that I'm being petty, that I should pay for the kids' private school so they're not left behind while Jenna's kids thrive. I said Caleb can't afford the kids he already has. Why is he still having them? She said, because they're building a family. I said, then let me help. I'll pay for his vasectomy. She was shocked. She looked like she just saw a ghost. She called me cruel, vile, said I was jealous that Caleb has what you never could, a family. That broke me. I said, you mean the family he made by stealing my wife? She told me to leave the past alone. I told her to leave my house. The next day, she texted me to say I'm not welcome at family gatherings unless I apologize and make things right. That I'm being toxic. That money has changed me. Jenna, God bless her, called me crying. She said Mom had berated her for letting me spoil her kids while Caleb's kids suffer. Jenna told her she was out of line and that she'd never apologize for accepting my love and support. She said I've done more for her family than anyone has, and she'd rather go no contact with Mom than let her ruin what we have. But still, the guilt lingers. I never wanted this much drama. I never wanted to be estranged from my family. I didn't ask for betrayal or to be compared to a golden child who took everything for granted. I didn't ask to have my life hijacked by someone else's choices. I've moved on, but my mother refuses to let go of the fantasy that we're all going to be one big happy family again. I'm not angry at the kids. They didn't ask to be born into this mess. But I also don't think I owe them the same care I give to Jenna's children, who respect me, include me, and have never caused me pain. So Reddit, tell me, am I the a-hole for refusing to support my cheating ex-wife and brother's kids and offering to pay for a vasectomy instead, even though I financially support my sister's children? OP is definitely not the a-hole here. Let me get this straight. OP's brother slept with OP's wife, fathered a child while they were still married, and now OP's mother wants OP to fund their ever-growing family like nothing happened. And when OP sets boundaries, she punishes him for it. Hell no. This isn't about kids. This is about entitlement, favoritism, and rewriting history to protect her golden child. OP owes them nothing. Jenna's kids are lucky to have OP, and OP is setting a healthy example by choosing love over obligation. And now let's hear community's opinion. Not the a-hole. That vasectomy comment? Brutal. Hilarious. But still not the a-hole. Your brother is out here breeding like a Sims character with cheats on and no financial plan. He made his choices. Your ex made hers. And your mother chose her favorite child, again. You're not petty. You're the only adult in the room acting with reason and integrity. Keep supporting the people who respect you. The rest can drown in their own bad decisions. Yes, the a-hole. Look, I get the betrayal. I wouldn't forgive it either. But punishing innocent children because of their parents' mistakes? That's harsh. You don't have to pay for everything, but offering a vasectomy as a donation? That's not setting boundaries. That's a power move meant to humiliate. You're better than that. You say you've moved on, but it sounds like you're still bleeding. Maybe not financially, but emotionally. Be angry, but don't take it out on the kids. Not the a-hole. Classic golden child syndrome. Your mom enabled Caleb his entire life, and now she expects you to clean up his mess. You didn't cause this. You're not required to balance the scales between your siblings, especially when one of them slept with your wife. Supporting Jenna doesn't mean you owe Caleb a cent. And those children, if your brother can't afford them, he needs to stop having them. Period.
My mother-in-law and I do not get along, but I'm really proud to say we called a ceasefire for the sake of my husband. I know this might sound childish, but it took blood, sweat, and tears for us to even be in the same room. Mother-in-law did some awful things to me, and it took work to forgive her. I did some things I'm not proud of, but at some point I realized I was just hurting my husband. Mother-in-law was an absolute monster at our wedding. She made planning a nightmare. She embarrassed me at my bridal shower, and she wore something that could have passed for a wedding gown. Right after the wedding, we had a financial setback and had to stay with mother-in-law. I know this is petty and not defending it, but I was still pissed about the wedding. Mother-in-law was having some guy over and demanded we hide ourselves away. She really liked this guy, cooked a fancy dinner, and spent like an hour getting dressed. So I ducked with the dinner she cooked and poured flour on her when the doorbell rang. Again, I'm not defending it right now, but we were in this awful war mindset. Yeah, mother-in-law kicked us out of the house for that stunt, and eventually I grew up and reached out to make peace. That was 2 years ago, and mother-in-law is still with him and they are getting married in January. I've apologized to her. She is never going to apologize to me, but we've made our peace. We bought our first house recently and had a large dinner party. Also, I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year. Mother-in-law said I can have it because it's the worst holiday, but hey, it's a start. Everyone knows how excited I am about finally having a house to host in. At the dinner party, mother-in-law was getting a lot of attention for being engaged, and people wanting wedding details. And sister-in-law decided to give a toast about how she knew her future stepfather was the right guy because he stuck around after that incident. And she told everyone about it in detail. And he calmed mother-in-law down and made her dinner while she washed the flour off. I get sister-in-law's point, but it was humiliating. Also, it paints an unfair picture because she left out all the stuff mother-in-law has done to me. Most of my guests were horrified. This was supposed to be a nice adult evening, and she was bringing up how immature I was right out of college. Mother-in-law laughed. Father-in-law laughed, because he is her ex and loves the flower story. But everyone else was in shock, and it made the vibe really weird. I called sister-in-law out after the party, and she laughed and said it was a funny story. I told her it was humiliating, and she said, well, it was true. I said as of right now, she is banned from the house because she disrespected me in my own house. This means Thanksgiving, since it is coming up. Mother-in-law asked me to reconsider because, well, you did do that. And because sister-in-law doesn't have anyone else to spend Thanksgiving with. I stood firm, and now mother-in-law is saying she will stay home and cook for sister-in-law. My husband is mad at his mom for picking sister-in-law, but said he will back me. Sister-in-law swears she was just kidding and I'm overreacting. You're the a-hole. You've left out details of exactly what your mother-in-law did that was so horrible to you. But the stunt with the flower is beyond the pale. You blame your age because just out of college, but that kind of behavior is something a small child knows better than doing. And while she was providing you a place to live to boot. Everyone sucks here. You all sound exhausting and unpleasant to be around. I feel bad for your husband that he cannot seem to escape self-centered petty children. You're the a-hole. You sound mean. You did a thing that obviously everyone knows about, but you obviously aren't over it, and are somehow using that to exclude your sister-in-law from a family gathering? Also, regardless of the rift between you and your mother-in-law, you were living under her roof and tried to sabotage a date that turned into a lifelong relationship. Come on. Grow up and get some perspective. You are just asking for future wars with that attitude. For some background, I was deeply in love with my fiancé. We were about 2 months away from the wedding when I found out he cheated on me. I knew of the girl but had never met her, but had it on pretty credible authority that she pursued him knowing he was engaged. It was still his fault, so I called off the wedding but tried to reconcile and forgive. I just couldn't do it. We broke up, but it was a year before I would even face the world socially, and 2.5 years before I went on another date. I'm past it, but will probably never truly be over the hurt. I work HR at a large tech company and am in charge of hiring new people to work in our sales department. The girl in question has a fairly unique name, so when I saw her name, I thought it might be her, but her last name didn't match. But when she sat down in our initial interview, me and one other person, we instantly recognized each other. I have to give her full credit. She was nervous for about a minute and then composed herself and gave an amazing interview. Her credentials are spot on, and obviously she has the ability to talk and be a good salesperson. But part of me feels like, duck you. I don't need to reward you with a commissioned sales position with an amazing base salary. My co-interviewer thought she was a slam dunk, but the decision still goes to me. We have interviewed 34 people, so I can easily hire someone else and raise no red flags. But the key is, she is the most qualified and gave the best interview. She sent a very polite email thanking us for the interview and asked if I would be willing to meet her again to discuss potential conflicts. I have yet to respond. I guess I have two choices: meet with her, probably hire her, or just hire someone else a little less qualified, and no one but me will ever know. Would I be the a-hole if I don't hire her? I'm not a lawyer, nor do I work in HR, but you may want to consider your own job security. She sent you that email and may have BCC'd your boss or others so that if she doesn't get the job, she can bring a bias complaint. If it is possible, you may want to rescue yourself from the process citing the conflict of interest. If you can do so and mention what the conflict is, you may find that your coworkers will find her behavior disturbing too and won't hire her for that reason. Finally, as a person in HR, are you allowed to use information you know from outside the formal hiring process? That she pursued your fiancé knowing he was engaged says a lot about her character, and what it says isn't good. You obviously don't want to hire someone whose behavior may create interpersonal problems with her coworkers. Perhaps you can just be open about that as being a reason for not hiring her. This is a huge conflict of interest, and I'm surprised your company doesn't have a protocol for something like this. I think you should give the decision-making power to someone else in this scenario. Recuse yourself. If you don't, I feel like you could get your company in big trouble. This is absolutely correct. OP, I'd email your boss and tell them that, due to a previous, long-standing personal association with this candidate, another member of the HR staff should be consulted on the decision on whether or not to extend an offer to this individual. If your boss asks why, you can discuss the situation off the record, but emphasize that you want your hands washed of this decision, and any interactions with this person should go through somebody else. The last thing you as an HR professional needs is a reputation or even an insinuation of not being objective. Get this off your plate. Edit. My boss finally got back to me. He works across the country from me, and he basically said that he needs me to handle it, trusts me, and expects me to hire the best person. A bit of backstory to paint a picture of the situation. My father, 62 male, Peter, cheated on my mom, 62 female, Wendy, about 10 years ago with the woman, 48 female, Sarah. We all knew. I was the one that found out, and after about 4 months, they divorced. More so than blaming Peter for cheating, Mom blamed Sarah for ruining both families. She had 3 kids at the time as well, and so did I at the time. Now, years later, I have forgiven Peter and Sarah the affair, and we agreed they handled it poorly. Mom has found some new love as well in a very conservative man, 74 male, Tom, with a frustratingly in-your-face mentality. He is good and kind to her, so I overlook the age difference. I, 32 male, recently went to dinner at my mom's place with my girlfriend, 33 female, Sam, of 5 years, when Mom confronted Sam with spending time with the homewrecker that Peter left with almost 10 years ago. Sam and Sarah bonded quite early on in my relationship with Sam, mostly over all the similar habits that Peter and I have in various things. Even though I was still processing the whole divorce and cheating situation when I met Sam, I've always supported her in getting to know my family and friends. This never really became an issue until Sam and Sarah went on a spa day together. Dad and I spent some bonding time at home while the girls were out having some innocent fun time of their own. No problem so far. When we arrived at Mom's for dinner, I opened the door to find Mom in tears and Tom standing between her and us with a raging glare in his eyes. As he steps towards Sam and starts yelling at her, I push her behind me to confront him in whatever he wanted to ventilate to her. He accused Sam of consorting with the enemy and being insensitive to the feelings of my mother. He continued yelling at her and then went on to saying that I have to raise the S properly if we were to stay welcome at their place. I responded by handing the car keys to Sam and telling her to lock the doors. Then, I aimed my attention at Mom's boyfriend and Mom to explain my stand in the matter. I don't regulate who Sam spends time with, since she is a grown woman with her own life. I understand the friction this might give for the relationship that Sam and Mom have. So does Sam, but there is nothing evil going on. Mom claims they probably have been talking about her during the spa day, and she doesn't like to be foul-mouthed behind her back. I assured her, I hope, that I can't imagine that is what Sam and Sarah were talking about at all, let alone the whole day. I cried a lot during the explanation, and Mom's boyfriend made fun of me for not being a man because of it. That doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, just painting the picture. In the end, he was most furious with me for siding with Sam over Mom's pain. I see his point, slightly, but still think I did the right thing. So I ask you, am I the a-hole in this? Not the a-hole. Tom obviously cares for your mom, but he needs to step back from these kinds of issues. Your mom needs to stop putting 100% of the blame on Sarah. Yes, she could have stayed away from a married man, but your mom needs to see that her husband actively went for a woman 14 years younger, and her projecting her anger into you and Sam is wrong. He's still your father, regardless of how his marriage turned out, and you're still going to have a relationship with him, just as you do with your mom. Everyone sucks here. I'm just going to say it. That woman ruined your mother's life. Your dad is your dad, so there's nothing wrong with reconciling with him, but I wouldn't have anything to do with the woman your dad cheated with. I would be upset too, but I think it's really weird how they just showed up freaking out. Everyone sucks here. I couldn't imagine wanting to bond with a woman who contributed to hurting my mom so badly. It's like you're a child and we're forced to be around her. It's one thing to forgive your father, but it's another to forgive the woman and actively seek a relationship with someone who did something so horrible to your mom. I was recently a bridesmaid for my best friend. Her only bridesmaid, I'll add, so a lot of the bridal duties fell on me. We'd been best friends since I was 15 and she was 17 though, so I was fine with all this work. Quick info, I have health issues which lead to extreme fatigue as a symptom. The day before the wedding, I basically single-handedly set up her reception while she talked with some family and friends. Which was fine. As I was wrapping up, she told me she needed my help sewing a button on her wedding dress, as her aunt hadn't fully finished the alterations. I told her of course I'd do this, and she said she'd call her aunt to walk me through what needed done. I had a bad feeling about this, as it's only one button. That hardly needs a walkthrough, but I put it down to my friend being overly worried as it's her wedding dress. It wasn't one button. I get to her home and we get on the phone with her aunt. It's 6 buttons, the clasp to attach her cloak, which needed hemmed, and the corset lacing needed adjusting. I was pissed, but not at my friend. I figured she didn't know how bad it was. It had been her aunt's job to alter the dress. A little quick info. She bought a cheap dress figuring aunt could alter it. I fixed the dress having to stay up until 3 a.m. to do so. Then I had to be up at 6 a.m. to be ready for the wedding. After we are ready for the wedding, my friend told me she'd forgotten to ask me to do this yesterday and asks me if I'll sew Marvel patches into her garter belt for her as a surprise for her fiancé. I agreed, albeit a bit unhappily, as my hands were in agony from sewing into the early morning. So we get through the wedding. My friend promises me that I can go back to nap before the reception this evening, as there's a few hours between the lunch and reception. That's basically all that was keeping me going. But then plans change and she needs me to stay with her and not go back to nap. I stay as I don't want to leave her alone and drink way too much coffee to try and stay semi-human, even though my body aches and I'm exhausted. Despite this, I'm struggling to stay awake at the reception and manage until the food is served and eaten and the first dance happens. I figure I've seen all the important parts and go to my friend telling her I need to go home now to sleep, as I literally cannot stay upright anymore. She got upset at me saying how I wasn't allowed to leave and she needed me by her side. How I was her only bridemaid, so I had to stay until the very end in case she needed me, and how I needed to greet guests who turned up late. I got upset at this and told her to get over herself, pointing out all I'd done for her so far and that I loved her, but that had limits with my health. So I left and slept for about 14 hours, waking up the next day with a migraine and various aches. She is upset, thinking I ruined her day, and that I'm selfish for not putting her first, that I was needed by her side and how a real friend would prioritize her day. Not the a-hole, and I guarantee you avoided another late night as head of the cleanup crew. When I got married, I had one bridesmaid as well. She literally walked down the aisle and then held my bouquet and engagement ring until I took them off her. If I'd known I'd had a virtual slave for the day, I would have utilized her much better. That dress should not have been left to the last minute, nor the garter. She could have asked some friends, groomsmen, to help set up. She could have asked her mom, aunt, other friends to greet late guests. To expect one person to do all that while all she had to do was smile and have fun is unreasonable. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I'm so sick of people and their wedding BS. She used you as her seamstress, wedding decorator, planner, and a damn doorman, greeter. You didn't ruin her day. She ruined it by using you. My daughter and her husband have recently announced their fourth baby in a small little family gathering I hosted. I know I should be excited and congratulatory, but I'm really not. I just felt exhausted the moment she announced it. Context. My daughter and her husband are really not well off financially, so they regularly drop off the kids with me since they can't afford daycare. Of course, I don't mind watching them, but the problem is that they'll pick them up quite a bit later than the agreed time. So, like I say 9, then they come at 1. Sometimes it feels like my grandkids spend more time with me than them. They also rely on me for money as well, but I'm not sure if the money I send them is being used on my grandchildren, as I've seen them buy new stuff for themselves after I give them money for something relating to the kids. There's a lot more I can rant about, but it just feels like it's just going to be another child for me to take care of, and I just can't force myself to be excited anymore. I honestly think they should have stopped at 1. Well, my daughter noticed my lack of noticeable reaction and asked me if I'm happy to be a grandma again, and I honestly blurted out, "Again? Really?" I didn't mean to, but she didn't take that well, and said I was a horrible person for not being excited for her and for getting a new grandchild, and the whole room just became tense after that. Me and my daughter haven't talked much since, but she still drops off the grandkids. Apparently, she's waiting for an apology until she's ready to talk to me, and while I'm hesitant, I don't want to split apart the family. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She won't speak to you but still uses you for childcare? Nope. You need to set some boundaries, and fast. She doesn't pick up the kids on time. She finds a different babysitter next time she needs one. Not the a-hole. Quit babysitting and pull all financial support. If she will not speak to you, she doesn't get to use you for free childcare. Not the a-hole. But it's time to play hardball. No offense, OP. But why wouldn't they use you when you offer free childcare and apparently give them an allowance? You need to teach them personal responsibilities. Lack of funds? Then they need to get better jobs or take a second one. You are not their ATM. They want to offload the kids? Then they need to pay a babysitter or find a childcare facility. It's time to practice tough love, or your daughter is never going to learn.